Alrighty, so we're strapping in once again to do another video for One Shot Review. And the movie that I watched today was Serpico, which is a movie from the 70s that is essentially a dramatic retelling of, I guess, the life story of the actual guy Serpico, but really it's just, it's not his whole life story. It's just this certain event that happens over the course of like a year and a half, 2 years, where basically he is a police officer that works within the NYPD in various different precincts and departments over the course of time, and he exposes a widespread ring of corruption and people being okay with the corruption and the covering up of it and all these different plainclothes officers being on the take and all that kind of stuff. So just to kind of get into it, I think this will be a pretty short review because it is, your typical movie that does a dramatic retelling, and there's not much to really get into other than maybe like the things I like and dislike about the movie. So I'll just leave it at that. But essentially what happens in this movie is he comes out of the police academy ready to go bust some criminals, and he starts to see those first breadcrumbs of at least things not being done the way they should be done. And that starts out with somebody else needing to take credit for his arrest when they weren't even willing to go catch the guy. It's got, then all of a sudden somebody's handing him an envelope when he moves to a new department. He doesn't even know why he's getting that. Then when he turns it back in, they transfer him to another department, and all of a sudden that department also has this whole bribery situation going on, but they're much more aggressive about it, where they're making him sit with the bag man and essentially put his life on the line every day to keep up this facade that he is not going to turn them in for all this corruption. And meanwhile, what's going on is he's sticking true to his word, he's sticking true to his morals, and he's not collecting any of the money, but he is trying to help build this investigation against the people that are being corrupt. And part of that too is that, while he's doing this over time, he's getting very minimal help from anybody else in the police department, especially the higher ups. And so he's literally putting himself in the front lines, ready to be taken out by going against all these people if they ever were to find out that he was doing that. And eventually they do, and it ends up causing a lot of turmoil for him. And the movie's really interesting. It not only shows it from the point of view, first of all, let me just say that Serpico is being played by Al Pacino. And it's not lost on me that I'm pretty sure everybody over the age of 40 has probably seen this movie, and I'm the weirdo as a young person to have seen it first time today. Especially because I think I've heard in pop culture, other people will be like, oh, what are you, some kind of Serpico or something like that. I guess now I'm in the know. But anyway, it plays Al Pacino, and part of the interesting part of this movie that I was going to talk about is that it doesn't just follow him every day going into work and encountering these things. It also follows him outside of work, right? So first you see him as this like young budding cop who's ready to take on the world, and he's got a righteous cause. And, he's going to all these different gatherings and stuff like that, and they kind of play into the sentiment that a lot of people think that the cop, because his first girlfriend in the movie is this like opera ballet actress type of person, and she's taking him around to all these parties in New York to hang out, and every time he tells somebody that he's a cop, they immediately want to basically go on the complete other side of the room. And then, as they get to know him, they know he's like a cool guy and stuff like that. They kind of build that up. But in general, you can really sense that the public hates the cops, or they don't trust them really. They don't think very highly of them. And then secondly, that he is understanding of that, and he's literally seeing the corruption. And so he's getting a feel for why the citizens really feel that way, right? And then similar to that, he's hanging out with this girl, and he's fighting for his cause. So when she says that she wants to get married, he's like, you can just go get married to that guy in Texas. I don't care. And then he has a second love interest that comes into play, who is originally his neighbor and stuff like that. And they use that dynamic to show off how the treatment that he's getting, where he's trying to follow the rules, and in reality, all he really wants to do is his job. In the beginning, he doesn't even want to get these other people in trouble. He just doesn't want to take any money. And that's a problem to everybody that does, because all of a sudden he's a liability because he has his hands clean. And if anything were to go belly up, he could tell on them and he's got no skin in the game. Whereas, like, if he had taken money from them, he's obviously not going to tell because he would get in trouble too. So that dynamic starts to ensue, and that makes it so that he goes home every day so frustrated and upset about what's going on and stressed out, fearing for his own life, that you kind of see the degeneration of him being this sort of like happy, loving sort of guy to becoming the type of person that, for one thing, he's got this detective that's helping him out in the mayor's office, and he tells that guy to go F off, and because he doesn't trust him anymore because he keeps trying to help him out and then it doesn't work out, and then he basically exposes himself to more risk. And then his new love interest, basically his longtime girlfriend in the movie, begins to start to feel the blunt of that, as she's just trying to exist, trying to help him out, trying to be a good partner to him, and those frustrations are turning him into somebody that's like, you know, there's like a scene in the movie where he's really upset that it didn't work out, and the first thing he says is, when I come home I want a clean house. And it's just like, dude, obviously this has nothing to do with her. Why are you screaming at her and stuff like that? And that eventually in the movie boils over to a point where she leaves him. But I thought that was an interesting dynamic, because even myself, working in a job previously, not the one I have now, but the one I had previously, I had a lot of a similar feeling. Less about corruption, but more about feeling that some of the people that I worked with lacked the integrity to try to do the job like to the best ability that they could. And when you tried to do that, it was almost like they stood in your way, which to me was just very disheartening, and it would frustrate me. I would come home and complain to my partner about stuff, and you know, eventually I realized that that was like a sickness, and that getting out of that job would allow me to remove myself from that. But he doesn't necessarily have the option like I did in this movie, because if he removes himself, then all of a sudden it's like, not only did he give up on trying to bring justice to these people, and apparently he has a very strong sense of that because he wants to tell on them anyway, but then on top of that, you know, they're already threatening his life. So if he leaves the force, he loses his only protection that he has, which is very little to begin with. But that being said, you know, the movie drags on. There's multiple different things that go on, and I just want to say, in the start of the movie, they open to him having already been shot in the face, so we know where this is going, but we just don't know how it's going to happen yet. And I thought that was pretty interesting. I also thought it was interesting how they layer in kind of like the idea of the layers of corruption, where it's taken him forever to get his his gold shield to become a real detective, and he keeps getting stopped at every turn, even though he's turning in these people for doing bad stuff. And what you find out is that even the guy that's in charge of him at like the directional level is in on it, or at least turns a blind eye to it to some effect. And the only person that's on his side is the DA and the police chief, and then his buddy who works in the mayor's office, and the people that he knows through that. But, you know, even that situation sucks, because the DA won't even let them ask the tough questions that implicate the people higher up that would actually change the system for the better. So, you know, it just is I think everything about the story is obviously very entertaining, very interesting, and it all builds to the point where he's essentially assigned to a narcotics task force after he goes and talks in front of a grand jury. And what happens is the system doesn't get fixed initially, because they arrest the 6 people that were originally doing the bribing scheme from his precinct, but it's happening all over the force, all over the city. So even though they get these 6 flunky cops, the way they put it in the film, it doesn't stop him from being in danger, nor did it solve any problems. And furthermore, after he's supposed to get his detective shield, which will kind of protect him a little bit more because he could just kind of do his job by himself. Once he is supposed to get that for talking to the grand jury. The person who is in charge of his department, who would have been implicated had he been able to talk about the tougher questions in the trial, is like, well, it's still my department. I'm the commissioner. I'm not giving it to him. And he transfers him to a narcotics unit who are taking in $30,000 a week from these different drops, right? So the money is there. They want him gone. They don't want their game to be spoiled, all that kind of stuff. And they essentially set him up to be shot because they put him in a situation where he's going to be in a very scary narcotics case. And then when he needs help opening the door so that he can put his gun through and kind of protect himself, the two other cops just do nothing. They just stare at him and wait for him to get shot. And so, that's kind of the end of the movie, really. But what it shows to you is like how deep that corruption ran. And then even in his hospital bed, they were giving him get well soon cards that told him to like fuck off and die, right? So luckily, all of this builds to a point where at the end of the movie, he's able to establish that this is going on, and they're able to make real systemic changes, and he receives multiple medals of honor from the police department, and he gets his gold shield finally. But I don't know when all these events actually took place. I know that this movie was released in the 70s, but what it says at the end of the movie is that he retired sometime in the early 70s and then moved to Switzerland. And to be honest, I don't blame him. If you've got the Italian mob coming after you because you're a good cop, like, what are you going to do at that point? You kind of have to skip and go. But regardless, that's kind of like the story. I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty good. Obviously, Al Pacino does a great job acting in it. I think that the way that the story unfolded, the direction, stuff like that was all perfectly fine, perfectly serviceable for this sort of a movie. And then I just like this movie a lot for today's world because it's almost like, we see all these body cam videos now where it's like on YouTube, due to FOIA requests, all this stuff is just out there, and it's just like the only videos you see on YouTube, because of the nature of the beast that is like the YouTube algorithm, is you've got the one half of the videos where the person who's being arrested is like a psychopath or on drugs or trying to do something horrible, and the good guy cop steps in and stops them, or the good guy cop is the nice person, de-escalates the situation, handles it, all that kind of stuff. Or the other half of the videos, and honestly the ones maybe it's not even the other half, like the majority of them, are a lot of videos of people being harassed or basically screamed at by cops for no reason and then being arrested and having their civil liberties infringed upon. And to be fair, some of these videos, it's like people are asking for it, but they're not breaking the law, right? And it's saddening to see such a misunderstanding of what the law is today, as well as that sort of, it's like instead of being drunk on money by taking bribes from other people, we now have like a different problem where now that we've established the police as the end-all be-all force of enforcement in this country, we have a similar problem where we have tons and tons of great cops, but then we've got a small selection of bad cops that are out here literally drunk with power and fake importance, screaming at people in situations that really don't require it, and escalating things to violence or other measures because they need to get the person under control who only reason they pulled over was because they saw them flash their lights because they were doing a speed trap or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just like, I think this movie is great because it reinvigorates my idea that the cops there are tons and tons of good cops are there, but at times the system can make it difficult for them to do the right thing. But ultimately, somebody of high integrity will choose to do the right thing. And because I have faith in humanity, I believe that the majority of cops probably have high integrity. And I just hope that today's cops could watch a movie like this and feel a sense of importance around maintaining that integrity and serving the people that they serve with the utmost respect for the law. But anyway, that's the movie. That's kind of what I disliked about it. There's not a lot of opinions to really talk about something like this, to be honest. I just think that it's a really cool story because it shows like the power of what a good cop can bring to the table. And, given that, I'm sure there's going to be no opportunity to see it in theaters anytime soon. So I recommend everybody go and watch this, but on streaming. I watched it on Amazon Prime because I just don't happen to have the DVD or the Blu-ray, on me, and I wanted to watch this movie. I feel like I'm justifying not having the physical when I literally have Amazon Prime, but it's just, I would watch the movie on Prime. It's free on Prime, no ads, none of that crap. If you got it, you got it. And then, I don't know if it's anywhere else. It's just where I found it. And then I would rate the movie, I'm going to go ahead and give it a strong 3. I think because there are aspects of the movie that could have been better in an artistic sense. So I don't really think that it deserves to be ticked up into the 4 territory. But this movie was absolutely serviceable for the story that it was trying to tell. And Al Pacino did a great job acting. The characters around him also did. You know what I mean? So I don't think there's anything wrong with this movie. I just think it lands somewhere in the strong 3. So that's the movie, Serpico. That's it. If you like this review or didn't like it, feel free to let me know in the likes and dislikes below, as well as if you liked it, agreed with me in some form of my opinion, let me know in the comments. If you disagree with me, then especially let me know in the comments because, I want to know what you think about it that's different than me and let me understand. You know what I mean? Let me learn, right? And then subscribe if you want to see more reviews. I think, the videos have been getting a decent amount of viewership for just the purpose of what I was doing them for, but I just think it would be fun to have more people subscribing to me. So, subscribe if you're liking them. Feel free not to if you don't. But that's it. That's Serpico. I'll catch you guys on the next one.